Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today I'm at Holmes Honda and this is the 2021 Honda HR-V Sport. And I'll list all the trim levels of the HR-V on the screen and their base prices so you can know a little bit more about what it might cost to pick up one of these models. Not terribly expensive, this particular trim level that we're looking at today, the Sport trim level, coming in under $26,000. And of course there's a link down in the description of the video to this very model. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the HR-V. It's been around since 1999. That's correct. You probably didn't know that it's been around as long as it has. And one reason for that is because it wasn't introduced originally to American markets. It was available in Japan, Europe, and select Asian markets. And that went for several years. From 1999 through 2006, you had the option of a 3 or a 5-door version, but then the HR-V disappeared from 2006 until 2013 when it was brought back. And if you're wondering, what exactly does HR-V stand for? According to Honda, it's High Rider Revolutionary Vehicle. And there are a lot of interesting features about this model of the Honda. Even though it's the smallest SUV you can buy, it's basically a crossover, which if you don't know, a crossover is a car sitting at SUV ride height. And that's one of the strong points of the HR-V, is that it has a decent ride for its segment. In fact, that's a pretty good ride. The suspension is very well tuned. The steering is good. And for the price point, it actually has a lot of very nice features and functionality. Being that this is the Sport trim level, I must say the exterior color of a GN Blue definitely fits in. And with the black accent, the black trim, you've got the black rims down there on all 4 corners. I think that fits very well. Also, the black mirrors, just a very nice balanced look in my personal opinion. You're gonna have the headlights here with LED daytime running lights, also fog lights down here on the lower portion of the bumper. And again, you've got some of that sportiness down here with kind of a front spoiler and just the black grille right here, that black honeycomb grille. Everything just kind of flowing together. And the lines actually are quite attractive, believe it or not. I know a lot of people might say, I don't know if I'd call that attractive lines, but they do have a nice kind of a shape to them that give it a bit of a sporty look to it. The hood isn't just kind of a large flat piece. It does have some character lines here. Very sporty looking, to say the least. Under the hood is a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder, 141 horsepower. It is connected to a CVT transmission, what's called a shiftless transmission or a 1-speed transmission. This model is front wheel drive, and the gas mileage, since you don't have a lot of horsepower here, definitely is decent at 28 miles per gallon city and 34 out on the highway. Hill Start Assist is available on this particular model, as I would imagine it probably is on all trim levels, because with 141 horsepower, you may very well need that Hill Start Assist depending on where you live and how many hills you have to drive up. And as I list a partial list of the safety features for the HR-V, you can see the full list by clicking on that link down there in the description of the video to the Holmes Honda website if you want to know more. One thing that I found interesting is the fact that this model has traction control that you can turn off if you want to, and I think I'm going to actually do that during our test drive and see if 141 horsepower is enough to actually spin the tires. Again, front wheel drive. We'll see what happens in just a little while on our test drive. Got that black trim around the windows, the tinted windows back here. I like this body line that starts on the front door and works its way all the way back here to where the door handle is located for the rear doors, not on the door itself. I actually like that. I think that gives it a nice clean look. Just seems to fit this particular model of vehicle. Got the typical body color door handles here on the front, roof rails, and that shark fin antenna up there. Hey, who knows, on a vehicle this size, maybe that actually improves aerodynamics. Now I'll list the numbers on the screen as far as cargo space goes, and of course you can maximize that cargo space by lowering the 60-40 split rear seats back here, one side or the other, or both at the same time, depending on what you want to do. And for the segment that this HRV fits into, well, the cargo space isn't terribly bad, although it's not overabundant, but what would you expect out of a smaller crossover like this? Good news though, for those of you who don't like those tire repair kits that we see in some models these days, there is a spare tire located under the floor here. Just a little bit more of that safety and security kind of peace of mind that knowing you have a spare tire brings. Because let's face the facts here, those tire repair kits are not going to fix every single situation that comes up that might cause the need for a tire to be replaced. And moving on here to the back seat, it doesn't seem that there's a whole lot to talk about here. Let me lower this headrest because I'm going to show you something that I find very interesting and I think very inventive actually. You don't have any air conditioning vents here, but you do have 2 USB ports and 1 cup holder there. But here's something interesting. If you lower the seat back down to maximize your cargo space, but you say to yourself, you know what? I'd like to use the space here where the seats are because I have no rear seat passengers to maybe store some cargo or whatever the case may be instead of the rear area. You can do that. And all you have to do is this, just pick up on the seat cushion and that comes right up, no problem. There you go. Now you can do that with both sides. And if you want to lower that, all you have to do is bring the seat back down like this and then pull up on that latch on the seat back itself and you can put everything back in place. It's that simple. But I thought that was very interesting how that worked. You might accidentally do that and wonder, what did I do and why did that happen and how do I fix it? Now you know. Let's talk a little bit about the front seat. Just have an old-fashioned key here, although you do have the remote ability to lock and unlock the doors. You got a panic button there, and also you can unlock that rear door back there for your rear cargo area. It's not automatic, it's not going to open up, but it will unlatch it, so you can just pull it up manually. Stick the key in the ignition and start the ignition up here. As we take a quick look around, you can turn on Econ mode if you want to, and like I said, down there, there's that button to turn traction control off or back on if you want to. All you have to do is hold that down and it's either going to go off or come back on. Give you a quick look at the dashboard. Of course, you've got steering wheel mounted controls here. You even have shifter paddles. This is the sport trim level. What would make you feel more sporty when driving your HRV than having those shifter paddles right there? And a few more buttons here on the steering wheel that I can show you as well. Everything's pretty easy to figure out here. And you do have a nice infotainment screen here. I like the fact that the button at the very top, on the top left-hand side, if you want to change the brightness, well, you can click on that and that will allow you to do so. Of course, everything pretty easy to figure out here. You can go into settings and make a lot of different changes. And if you're not a fan of vehicles that don't have knobs and switches and things like that for the air conditioning, well, you'll like what we have here because you do have a couple of dials and a couple of buttons to control the air conditioning here right underneath the infotainment screen. And of course, just kind of an old school shifter right there for your CVT transmission. And something that I thought was interesting, and maybe on higher trim levels, there is a reason for this, but it looks like there's a button to the right-hand side of the shifter right there, but that doesn't actually do anything. It's just a hard piece of plastic, but it looks like something should be there that does something. Maybe on a higher trim level, it allows you to go into super pursuit mode. Tell me down in the comments if you know what that's from. You're going to probably date yourself if you do. In fact, the very first person who can tell me what that's from, I'll send you a Vehicle Visionary t-shirt. Now, of course, you've got the power parking brake, button for brake hold mode if you want to use that. If you're in heavy traffic or just want to come to a complete stop and not have to keep your foot on the brake, well, that's what brake hold mode is for. It has several different advantages. Maybe we can call that a multitasker. And also here, you're going to notice as we kind of look around the interior right here, there doesn't seem to be any drink holders. Actually, there are, and it's quite interesting how Honda has set this up. I'm going to show you how that works right here in front of the console. And with this little separator in between those, you can actually pull that out and use that for additional storage, or you can use it for its intended purpose for your drink holders. You're in the front seat, you've got 2 of those there. You can see how that works. Depending on the size of your drinks, well, will determine how you set that up. Again, that's one of those multitaskers that I like to talk about. And you do have the sliding lid for the console. And I had somebody who told me one time that if you take off in one of these Honda vehicles that has that with your arm on this, again, that is a multitasker. The reason it slides forward is so you and the front seat passenger, the driver and the front seat passenger, can use that as an armrest. They said that when you take off from a dead stop, that it will actually push this back. I don't care how hard I try, that's not easy to do. And with my arm just resting up there, that's really hard to do. Of course, you do have a small console here, and inside that area, well, I guess you could fit maybe 1 to 2 small or medium size Vehicle Visionary t-shirts if you fold them just right. An interesting thing that I also noticed here, the design of the air conditioning vents, more of a traditional look here for the driver's compartment over here, but on the passenger side they really don't look as traditional, but something that kind of just sets the HR-V apart. And if you want a little more space, you do have that with what is inside of the glove box. And like I promised you, we're going to get out on the road and do a test drive, see if we can maybe lay a little rubber with an HR-V. But by the way, one more thing I don't want to leave out as I look down into the footwell for the driver's compartment. You do have those sport pedals down there. Like I said, it needs to be sporty because it is the sport trim level. Are there USB ports? Yes, there are. You've got a little pass-through here on the underside of the console in the front. You've got a couple of USB ports right there. Probably would work really well. They're both on the driver's side, and there's nothing on the passenger side as far as that goes. You do have a 12-volt power outlet over there, but it would probably work a little bit better if you had one USB port on each side. Tell me what you think about that in the comments section. All right, I promised an attempt to spin the tires. Let's see what happens. Well, other than a lot of RPM, well, nothing really happened there. If I foot braked it, it might actually spin just a little bit, but I have my doubts. Who knows? But one thing I will say is that the steering is pretty good and responsive. Not something you would actually expect, I would imagine, on an HR-V. So cruising through these corners is actually a little bit of fun, although I don't plan to just pitch this model into the corners at a high rate of speed or anything like that. But even though that corner that we just went through, obviously not very sharp at all, but boy, it held it no problem, very minimal body roll. Not something you would probably expect, but I'll tell you what, if you are an HR-V owner, maybe you're having a stressful day, sometimes people when they're having stressful days want to go out for a drive, you can actually have a little bit of fun with an HR-V in such a situation. And like I mentioned earlier, the ride is surprisingly comfortable. Not something you would necessarily expect with a smaller crossover like this, but that is what you get nonetheless. And I do like the fact that we can just have a little bit of fun going through the corner here, just kind of taking my time, not going too terribly fast, but I'm really impressed with the handling characteristics here. And while the horsepower is definitely low, it definitely could serve its purpose for the right person in the right situation. If you have a long commute and you want to save gas, but you need a new vehicle that isn't terribly expensive in this day and age, well, the HR-V is definitely something that would fill the bill. And it has a reasonable amount of technology and creature comforts. Not a bad price point for what you actually get in all forms and fashions. And even though I didn't show it earlier, of course, this model does have a backup camera, but that's not a big surprise based on the fact that basically it was mandated in the United States that you are supposed to have a backup camera by the year 2020 on all vehicles. And that is a tour of the 2021 HighRider revolutionary vehicle. You'll never see HR-V the same way again. when you take a look at one of these models. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was quite a bit of fun to make. There's a lot of interesting features to the HR-V that you might not have known were there until now. I'm going to say a special thank you to my friends here at Holmes Honda for loaning me this HR-V for the day. And a special thank you to all of you for giving me the opportunity to give you a vision for your next vehicle. Look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.